In Jane Austen's novels, there is one type of character that always stands out, the one who does not care about social hierarchy at all. They are usually the ones who end up getting punished for it. You know who I'm talking about, right? The servants who dare to fall in love with their employers. The low-born characters who marry above their station without the consent of their family and cause scandal. Or the scheming villains who seek to marry rich and marry well, but have no qualms about marrying outside their social class. We're going to explore the punishments these characters face and how they reflect the rigid class structure of Regency England. But be warned, there will be spoilers ahead for all 6 of Jane Austen's novels. So if you haven't read them yet, then don't click play just yet. Also, this is episode 100, so if you enjoy this video, please consider subscribing to my channel. Let's get started. Jane Austen was well aware of how important social standing was to her readers, and so she often wove contemporary issues regarding class conflict into her novels. During the Regency period, England was divided into 3 main classes: the upper class, the middle class, and the lower class. And movement between these classes was almost impossible. If you were born a servant, you would most likely die a servant. No, it wasn't just because there was no social mobility. It was also because of the legal system. Servants could easily be prosecuted for stealing, which meant that many of them ended up in prison for taking food or other necessities from their employers. Unsurprisingly then, servants in Austen's novels tend to be punished severely when they break the social order. In Pride and Prejudice, Mrs. Danvers, who dares to criticize her employer's choice of marriage partner, is dismissed immediately. And in Emma, the underhouse parlor maid, who has a baby out of wedlock, is sent away and never heard from again. Even characters who aren't servants, like Mary Crawford in Mansfield Park, can be punished severely for ignoring their social inferior. When Mary begins a flirtation with the underhouse parlor maid's brother Edmund, despite his low status, he ends the relationship quickly, demonstrating that even a clergyman can be influenced by societal expectations. However, perhaps the most interesting characters in relation to class are those who straddle multiple social boundaries. Take, for example, the 2 most famous characters in all of literature, Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy. When they first meet at the Meryton Assembly, Elizabeth is repelled by Darcy's pride and prejudice. She recognizes his high social status and believes him to be arrogant and condescending. Darcy, in turn, is prejudiced against Elizabeth because of her low social status. He believes her to be beneath him, and so initially refuses to dance with her at the assembly, and later criticizes her family for their lack of breeding. However, over the course of the novel, both characters learn to overcome their prejudices and unite to families of different social classes together in the end. The ending of Pride and Prejudice, however, is not representative of what usually happens in Austen's novels. In real life, a woman of Elizabeth's social class would have had very few options when it came to marriage. And if she were to marry a man of Darcy's social class, she would be expected to live with her husband's family and would have very little contact with her own. One of the most scandalous things a woman of the lower or middle class could do during the Regency period was to marry a man of a higher class without the consent of her family. This was seen as a form of social climbing and was often frowned upon. In fact, there were several cases during the Regency period of women being prosecuted for throwing themselves at higher-class men with the intention of trapping them into marriage. One of the most famous cases was that of Mrs. Jordan, an actress who had a brief affair with the Prince Regent and then gave birth to his illegitimate child. She was prosecuted for seduction and forced to give up her child for adoption. In Austen's novels, the consequences for characters who marry above their station are much less severe, but they still reflect the rigid class structure of Regency England. For example, in Sense and Sensibility, Marianne Dashwood is nearly ruined by her secret marriage to the Earl of Middleton, a man of considerably higher social status than herself. Although their marriage is eventually revealed to be legal, Marianne is still ostracized by society, and her family is forced to move in with their wealthy acquaintances, the Dashwood family, in order to survive. Similarly, in Emma, the main character's friend, Harriet Smith, is talked out of marrying a farmer by her close friend, Miss Bates, because she believes that he is beneath her social standing. Although the two eventually marry, the fact that they come from different social classes causes a scandal, and Miss Bates is shunned by society. Of all Austen's novels, perhaps the most blatant critique of the rigid class structure of Regency England is found in 𝐿 Abbey. The story follows Catherine Morland, a young woman who is invited by her family friends, the 𝐿ens, to visit the opulent estate of 𝐿 Abbey. There Catherine falls in love with the brooding Henry Tilney, the son of the wealthy landowner. However, their romance is threatened by Catherine's low social status. In fact, when Henry first meets Catherine, he is initially uninterested in her because he believes her to be beneath him. Only after he learns that she is the niece of a wealthy London merchant does he begin to court her seriously. In the end, the couple is married, and Catherine becomes the mistress of 𝐿 Abbey. However, their marriage is not without its challenges. Catherine must learn to navigate the complexities of high society, and she is often mocked by Henry's friends for her lack of breeding. Despite the challenges they face, however, Catherine and Henry's love for each other ultimately triumphs, and they live happily ever after. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. If you did, please consider subscribing to my channel